Wendy, how did you find carnivore?
So it's a winding road, actually. Probably started originally going paleo. So it was kind of gluten-free, then sort of grain-free paleo. Then my father was diagnosed with pre-diabetes, and because I'm a herbalist, I was giving my dad all of the typical herbal remedies that we would give to somebody with diabetes type 2. Cinnamon, gymnema, goat's rue, and I was giving them to him at really quite high doses, higher than I would normally give a patient, and it made absolutely no difference. Absolutely no difference. And my father was, I think, days away from going back to the doctor and going to take the metformin. And I was so lucky to have a medical herbalist colleague who's big shout out to Sarah Hamilton. She actually took over my dad's treatment and she put him on a ketogenic diet. And within 3 days of embarking on the ketogenic diet, my dad's blood sugar had gone down to within the normal range that conventional would like. So that was really my first sort of insight into it. And I found that just fascinating because the herbal medicine alone hadn't helped, but the diet works so quickly. So that took me down a route of researching ketosis, low carb lifestyles, and I actually didn't embark on it myself because personally I am a sugar addict. Like, hold my hand up. I am a complete, absolute sugar addict. And the thought of giving up sugar for me was abhorrent. I mean, it wasn't until, I knew all the science, I knew everything there was. I really had researched everything. And it wasn't until, it was vanity, to be honest. I was actually nominated for a business award in my local area. And it was actually to be held on my birthday. And I took this as a sign that I was going to win. And my birthday is it's in February. So after the Christmas, I went to the Christmas sales and I bought this dress. And I had to be crowbarred into this dress because I was too fat. But I was determined that by February, I was going to fit into this dress comfortably. And the only way to do that was to go on a low carb ketogenic diet. So I did. So even though I knew all of it's still a learning process and I'm still learning for sure. But knowing all the science wasn't enough. It was actually vanity and getting into that dress. So I embarked on a ketogenic diet, and I remember specifically I was cleaning my oven and I looked up and it was 10 o'clock at night and I was inside my oven cleaning it. And I thought, bloody hell. What was more, I was enjoying cleaning my oven. And I remember thinking right there and then, wow, this ketosis. Because I don't think I'd ever cleaned that oven before, to be quite honest. But yeah, it was for me entering ketosis switched on a part of my brain. It's quite emotional actually thinking about it because looking back, I didn't realize how depressed I was actually for years and years and years. And I feel that ketosis switched something on in my head. So I was in keto for probably 5 to 7 years. And then because I'm a medical herbalist, generally people come to a herbalist when they've tried everything else. Let's face it, in the UK, the NHS is free. So most people come with quite chronic health issues to a herbalist. So I would see a lot of autoimmune, inflammatory bowel diseases, inflammatory skin conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, the really, really gnarly stuff. And of course, you can't be in this space without looking at or hearing about Michaela Peterson and, of course, her father. And I watched, I think it was the TED talk that Michaela did about her journey and how, she had juvenile arthritis very severely. And I think at a young age had, I think it was her ankle joint replaced and one hip joint. And then she found the Lion diet. So I went into the deep dive of that. Now, I always like to try out the diets that I would recommend my patients before recommending them. So I was only going to do carnivore for a month. So I did. After a month, I just felt amazing. I felt so good. I thought, oh, okay, I'll do it for 3 months. And then after 3 months, I think it was a bit of broccoli. Like I didn't even, I didn't go mad, because I had been keto for so long. And the weird thing is I think I've always had like a bit of psoriasis at the back of my scalp. Not really bad, but like quite itchy. And bizarrely, the day after I'd eaten the broccoli, I was scratching my scalp again. And I thought, wow, I hadn't noticed. I hadn't noticed that it had gone until it had came back. So I just thought, as nice as the broccoli was, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy vegetables. I've always, enjoyed my leafy greens and stuff. But I just thought, you know what, it's not worth it. But I did learn a lot. I learned a lot. I want to talk about oxalate dumping because I learned so much about oxalate dumping because after being completely carnivore, or really it was Lion, like I decided I was going to go full throttle. I would say Lion with coffee because I'm not giving up coffee. So I was still drinking black coffee, but Lion with coffee. 3 days after starting the carnivore diet, I got this awful pain in my hip. And the only way I can describe it is like there was glass in my hip. And when I was walking, it felt like it was grinding. So, of course, I was thinking, what the hell is this? So, did a Google search as you do, like what's going on. And then, of course, I found the work of Sally Norton, and her book is back there somewhere, Toxic Superfoods. And I watched quite a few of her videos, and she recommended eating half a sweet potato because of the oxalate content to slow down the oxalate dumping. And of course, I hadn't eaten any carbs like that for years. So I was a little bit reticent, but the pain was, quite real and it was causing a limp. So I ate the half potato and it really was, it was nice. And I think the next day I ate the other half of the potato. But within the first day, the pain had gone. So I absolutely know that oxalate dumping is a real thing. And looking back on my ketogenic diet, and this is no shade on the ketogenic diet at all, but it does encourage people to eat a lot of foods that are naturally high in oxalates. And I don't think I could possibly have eaten more oxalate-rich foods unless I had mainlined them straight into my bloodstream. So I was eating probably about a packet of spinach a day because, of course, it's low carb. I was drinking almond milk because, of course, there are less carbs in almond milk. I mean, basically because it's water. But I was drinking almond milk. I would snack on almond nut butter. of course, because of my food addiction or my sugar addiction, even though I wasn't eating sugar, I was making keto alternatives. So a lot of those sort of cakey things that you make have almond flour or ground almonds. And then, of course, chocolate. I mean, I was eating, dark chocolate, 85% dark chocolate, but I was having at least 2 squares a day. So looking back now, I think, well, no wonder I had such a rush of oxalate dumping, because I don't think I could have eaten any more oxalate rich foods.
So the thing about the foods that you're eating is you almost feel when you're doing keto that you've got license to eat those foods that are high oxalate, right? Because it's like the spinach is low carb and it's very light and it's got all the vitamins and minerals that you're meant to eat. So it's just like, well, I'll just eat as much as I want, and you think everything's
Yeah,
going to be good.
and because it's funny because it's only going carnivore that really underlined to me and made me realize what a food addict I was, because it takes all of the noise away. I mean, I would say not only was I a sugar addict, but I was a binge eater. So yeah, I would absolutely binge on these healthy foods. Nuts. I don't eat nuts because I can't minimize the amount of nuts I'm going to eat. I used to buy them in bulk thinking that I was saving money. But every time I went down into the kitchen, I would have like a handful of nuts. And then you wonder why on keto you're not losing weight. Well, you're overeating, hugely actually inflammatory foods. I mean, yes, it's better than eating a standard American diet, or the SAD diet, as we call it. But I think any diet is better than that. But I would say that with carnivore, it absolutely taught me what an addict I was, and actually how it was my first addiction. Sugar was without doubt the gateway drug for me, if there is a gateway drug.
Yeah, it's got this way of, because it removes all the food noise, it removes all the chaotic thinking about, like, what am I going to eat next? When's the next snack? I've
Mm,
got to think
mm.
about this, because it removes all that stuff. It's You can think clearly about stuff and look back and go, "Oh, I was a monster when it came to food."
But yeah, you're right. It takes out all of that noise, that food addiction, the little voice, oh, just one, a small piece. And for me, I would say, as restricted as carnivore is, and it is restricted, it gives me so much freedom from that hell that you create for yourself when you're in active addiction. And people may laugh and say, oh, sugar is not really addictive, but give it up. Try and give it up, because I will tell you now it's really hard.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If it's so easy, let's see then.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So, and I think, as you say, carnivore is restrictive, obviously, because there are foods that you can't eat. Although most of those foods should be in air quotes. Um, but it's almost like, if you're eating a regular diet, if you're eating the sugar, that's like you in prison, and the prison guards saying, "We'll release you, but you have to always live you always have to live in this area for the rest of your life, or you can't go out to, I don't know, you can't go to discos anymore, or whatever." Right? So it just puts some restrictions on it, but apart from those restrictions, your life is free now.
Absolutely. And I mean, and also, the cooking, cooking carnivore is just so simple, isn't it? I mean, it's just so easy. I mean, it takes so much time out of preparing and shopping for food. And what really, I mean, I'm sure you're the same when you do go into sort of supermarkets now, especially here now in the UK with Christmas. I mean, there are aisles and aisles of brightly coloured, essentially rubbish, poison food that people are consuming because it's the festive period. And I just look at it now and think, wow, I wouldn't buy or eat anything down this aisle.
Yeah, I just kind of walking past that these days, I just kind of look at it like that. It's just poison.
Mm. And
Yeah,
it is poison. I mean, it's shocking that we give these things to our children as treats. And I mean, being in the health space and dealing with a lot of people with, chronic long-term illness, you can see that the basis of all of it is inflammation, insulin resistance, and I do work with some individuals to put them on carnivore. I mean, I'd have to say in general, they have to be a pretty bad way to embark on it. So I've had multiple chemical sensitivity people that basically they're allergic to everything. So for them, actually putting them on, a lion diet, so a ruminant only diet, again, gives them so much freedom because they're not reacting. A lot of inflammatory skin conditions, really quite bad, skin issues. Putting somebody on a carnivore diet can be absolutely miraculous. And the few people that I have put on a carnivore diet have all found it really, really restorative.
yeah. It's just getting to the point them to the point of actually trying it. That's the hardest part. Once they're trying it, like it's like has gathers its own momentum at that point because people start feeling good.
Mm.
Um, for you personally, like carnivore's taken away all the food noise and the problems that you had with the sugary foods and the nuts and all that kind of thing. But um, how far into carnivore were you before you went? You know what? This is really feeling good.
Oh, without doubt, within like the first month for sure. I mean, you feel superhuman. It is absolutely insane. And if you go to the gym and you work out, the recovery time is, well, you just don't need it. And it's really bizarre because Anthony Chaffee talks about this, about how if he doesn't exercise or lift weights, that you maintain the muscle. But you do, because, there have been periods where I've been too busy or just too blinking lazy to go to the gym. And you sort of think, oh no, I'm losing my muscle tone. But you go back you're exactly the same. You just don't seem to lose that. And the mental health, I mean, that's what would keep me low carb, keto, or certainly carnivore, because you just don't have those. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have mood swings. I am human and a woman, but not extreme. Not as extreme. I think you're definitely sort of more level rather than, absolutely insane. And I was
Yeah,
definitely insane in the past with hormonal issues. When I first went carnivore, I actually did the first year without any supplements or any herbal medicine. And then after a year, I sort of thought, okay, I'm going to go back on the magnesium because I'm kind of getting into that age of perimenopause and my sleep was being affected a little bit. So I do take magnesium at night to help me sleep. And I do have my own bespoke herbal medicine that's like tailored for me as an individual to support my hormones through this transitional phase. But other than that, you don't you really don't need to take huge amounts of supplements. And I think that's really significant, because unfortunately I work with, well, not unfortunately, but I do work with a lot of people that are on a plant-based regime. And when you look at the amount of supplements that they take, I mean, it costs them a fortune. And unfortunately, obviously they're ill because they're coming to see me. So, I mean, obviously there's that bias there. But I do try to encourage people to, if they're not eating any animal products, to start eating eggs, perhaps a bone broth. And I mean, some people are open to it, some people not at all. You know, some people are just the ethical thing about the animals. And I mean, I get it. And I've had these sort of debates with plant-based folks, you know, and I mean, I understand it. I love animals. I've got a lovely dog. Nobody wants to see them harmed. But I remember saying to a couple of my patients, well, if you want to sacrifice your health for the health of the animals, then that's your choice. And it is their choice, you know, and some people prefer to do that. I mean, I was lucky enough to see at the Public Health Collaborative Conference a couple of years ago, Leah Keith was there, famously ex-vegan, and her story and her health issues following her, you know, previous diet are really compelling. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I understand the ethics, but I personally think if we all chose to buy our foods from local farmers, if we could have that ability to buy better, you know, it would make such more of a difference. It would make more of a difference overall for animal welfare than, you know, people going completely vegan. And of course, there is death everywhere. You know, even if
Yeah.
you're vegan, I mean, you're still
You're still knocking out the field mice and
yeah,
badgers
the
and all that kind of thing.
voles, the birds, and then you get into the hierarchical of thing of like, well, what animal is more important? Is a cow more important than a field vole? Or, you know, the insects, you've got the spraying. And I mean, agriculture, the traditional way where we all learned it at school, you had the 4 fields and it was crop rotation, wasn't it? 1 year, one field would lay fallow. Then you'd have the animals, you know, they would poop all over it. And it would rotate like that. Well, now, of course, we just shove on loads of nitrogen fertilizers. The topsoil is being washed away. You can see it. I mean, if you go into the country after it's rained, you can literally see the soil running off the fields and into the roads, into the drains. That's going into the sea, never to be seen again. So it's a web of life, isn't it? I mean, that sounds so corny, but it is.
Yeah, and I think, you know, actually, I feel like you brought up a really, really good point there about like how we, if you get into a discussion with vegans about, well, you know, field mice and all that are being killed, and so you get into the hierarchy argument, and
Mm,
like so their stance would probably be like a cow is more valuable than a field mouse, right? And then it's like, well, hang on, but isn't your problem that humans think they're better than everything else? So like
yeah.
your argument's no better than anyone else's.
100%, 100%. And I mean, if you use that argument with a Hindu, of course, you're not going to get very far, because obviously it's the holy cow, you know, no offense, but absolutely. But I do feel that, I don't know. And I mean, this is quite controversial, but I do think that as a carnivore and in the low carb space, we are quite calm because we're not having those huge sugar spikes and then insulin crashes. So I think our mood tends to be less changeable and we are calmer. That's
I
not to
think
say that they're all mental, but, I think there is that aspect.
I think one of the best illustrations of that kind of, the blood sugar rocketing up and then the insulin drop and all that kind of thing is like you just got to look at primary school class these
Ah,
days. Like when we were kids, if there was one kid that behaved erratically like, half the class does now, then we'd be shocked. But yeah, it's like they're eating so much sugar, so much processed food, they can't focus, they're jumping on tables and all sorts of
mm.
stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to teachers about this, and they all say they all really don't want to teach the classes straight after lunch because of this. That they all go a bit crazy, and then of course they crash, so they can't concentrate.
Yeah, I don't envy that job. I mean, I used to teach kids in Japan, but in Japan it's a little bit different, because they're
Mm.
not allowed to have all that stuff at school. But yeah, it's I don't envy that job, especially like you say after lunch,
But
trying
now, I
to
mean, in the UK, you see, I personally see children walking to school with energy drinks, and it's just because you've got the sugar, which is absolutely addictive without a doubt, and then combined with the caffeine, you're setting them up. I think you're setting these kids up for, all sorts of mental health issues, probably addiction issues when they grow up. And, when you look at the work of Belinda Fettke, she looked at how big tobacco invested into sugar and specifically targeted children. I mean, I can remember I was sort of born in the late 70s, and in the 80s, it was all sugar, cereals. They all had the cartoon characters on. We all know the tiger, we all know the monkey. In the box, there was a toy, so you had to eat the box. So that's encouraging you to eat the box faster. They're using primary colours, bright colours to attract your attention. And then on the back, there would be like puzzles. So you're basically starting the day with a huge sugar hit. And then, of course, lunchtime, what do you give your child? It would be a club biscuit or a penguin. Okay, they'd have the sandwich, which was good, healthy, but people don't. I tell you what, people really don't realise. I found that carbohydrates are metabolized into sugar. They absolutely don't understand that. And when you explain it to them, they are absolutely horrified.
right. I mean, I think one of the most insidious things really is like how fruit is like kids are told eat fruit, eat fruit, eat fruit, eat fruit, and it's almost as bad as
Worse in
the
some
sugary
way.
stuff, yeah, and it's hitting their liver directly.
Absolutely.
Their liver's gotta take care of that, and look at all the kids with, fatty liver disease now.
Well, yeah. I mean, it used to be called alcoholic fatty liver. And then, of course, now it's non alcoholic fatty liver because, children were getting it. Started mainly in the States where children would be drinking fizzy pop that would have sugar and high fructose corn syrup. And, we're getting non alcoholic fatty liver disease. And I mean, that is just shocking. But yeah, I mean, we are setting up our children for chronic inflammation throughout their life. I mean, if you don't have that good nutrition. And the thing is, it's no fault of the parents really, because they believe, I think they honestly do believe healthy whole grain. I mean, not with the fizzy pop, because I mean that really is just diabetes water. I think everybody knows that that's not a healthy option. But then they would give their children fruit juice, as you said. And if you look at the amount of sugar in apple juice and Coca-Cola, it's the same.
Yeah, and I agree with you on the point about the parents, you know, because the average parent is just listening to the messaging they're getting from TV, from
Mm.
the government, from all the different, you know, agencies around and authorities and whatever. And they're all sharing the message of, you know, healthy whole grains and fruit and veggies and all that kind of stuff. And I guess if a parent takes their child to the doctor, child is diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, probably the doctor, knowing sweet f all about nutrition, is going to turn around and say, "What you need to do is you need to cut out saturated fat.
Mm,
Make sure they're not eating any saturated fat, healthy whole grains, lots of fruit and veggies.
mm.
Make sure that you're getting your 5 a day or whatever it is." And, like, the parents just gonna go, "Well, okay, okay. Yeah, no worry," because of course they're gonna believe the doctor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if people knew that the dietary guidelines were actually based on, quite frankly, utter bollocks. I mean, that really is what they're based on. I mean, we can go into like Ansel Keys. I'm sure you've talked about, well, I know you've talked about this before. The food frequency questionnaires, the 7 country study that was actually, I think, 23 studies. And because um, he basically cherry picked his data to show like a nice bell curve, that people that were eating the highest saturated fat had the most heart disease, and the people that were eating the lowest amount of saturated fat. So I think it was Japan at the lowest, because they were eating the lowest amount of saturated fat and had the lowest heart disease. And then America at the top, they were eating the most amount of saturated fat and had the most heart disease. And it looked like, oh, yeah, job done. But later we discover that he took out data from countries such as France. So we all know that the French like to eat their butter. They eat a lot of cheese. I mean, they're famous for it. And actually, they eat huge amounts of fat, very low levels of heart disease. And also Germany, I mean, stereotypically Germany with their beer and their sausage. But they also were kept out of his data. And it wasn't until years later when the damage had been done. But the point of that study, which isn't a study, because a study is a randomized, a controlled study, this was food frequency questionnaires. And why I sort of tongue in cheek say that it was bollocks is because if I said to you, Dave, well, if I said to you, you would know actually because you're carnivore. But if I said to most people, could you tell me in the last 6 months how many portions of satsumas have you eaten? I mean, how would you know? And then if I said to you, well, what size is a portion? I mean, you'd have no idea. So it's kind of like a guesstimate. So these types of study are called epidemiological, which just basically means that they go and ask a lot of people, they get a lot of data, and then they crunch those numbers, and you'll see what we see. We'll see correlation, which means that, the people that are drinking the most alcohol might have the most central obesity or liver disease. But you can't prove a correlation. You can't prove causation from correlation.
And, the whole problem with these things at the end of the day is they know the outcome they want, so they're gonna do whatever it takes to get that outcome. right? Like Ansel Keys knew the outcome he wanted. That's why
Mm.
he excluded those countries.
Yeah.
Um, and the same with the food frequency questionnaires and the design of everything. It'll be designed in a way to get the result they want.
Mm.
And so, and which is why they never take into account any context, you
I
know.
think they're coming to the point though, because now you've got all this Mediterranean diet. You know, the Mediterranean diet, my favorite, because it's just, well, what do you mean? What do you mean a Mediterranean diet? Do you mean pasta and pizza? Or do you mean chorizo? And, what do you mean? But what I think people think when they talk about a Mediterranean diet is they picture lovely salads with tomatoes drizzled in olive oil and fish. That's what people think of the Mediterranean diet. But I think it's because the powers that shouldn't be, if you like, have come to realize they cannot demonize fats forever. So they're going with, well, olive oil is okay because it's a monounsaturated oil, because obviously the vegetable oils, canola oil, have been shown, without doubt to be really detrimental to health because of the trans, all of that. So they're using olive oil as kind of a midway point of sort of agreeing with us that all fats aren't bad. That's my view on the Mediterranean diet. It's a bugbear of mine.
Yeah. Um, so for you personally, what is your eating like day to day now?
So for breakfast, it's usually 4 slices of streaky bacon, 4 eggs, and a big chunk of butter, like a huge amount of butter. I eat huge amounts of butter. And then lunch, I will have often, I think you call it pork rinds. We call them pork scratchings here. Um, but you've got to buy the certain ones that, because most of them in the UK have gluten in, or they're cooked in seed oils. So, bit of a plug here, but the ones that I eat are called posh porkies because they're cooked in lard. Or I'll fast. Or I'll have bone broth. I'm a big one for bone broth. I'm always cooking my own bone broth. Um, and then dinner, like last night, I had 4 beef burgers with more butter. And then for pudding, because that's crept in a little bit. I never used to eat dairy, but I'm eating full fat Greek yogurt. But I think it's going to have to go because I can tell already the food addiction part of me is like eating it every day where it used to be like a treat. So I think I do need to knock that on the head. But that's only because of my food addiction. And I can tell it's become a thing.
Yeah, dairy can be dangerous, That's what I'm like with cheese. I can't
Yep.
anything else, carnivore, I can kind of just it can sit in the fridge or in the cupboard or whatever, and I'm not in any way enticed to be getting up and go and eat it and eat it and eat it. But if there's cheese there, I can't stop.
Yeah. Well, I
Hmm,
think it's is it the castanomorphins? You
right.
get that sort of feel good factor from dairy. I mean, I didn't eat dairy other than butter for quite a long time. And when I was keto, I didn't have dairy. Again, vanity, because I felt like it made me come out in spots rather than anything else. Seemed to be okay with butter. And I think because I've been carnivore for so long, I think I've healed my gut enough now to be able to tolerate fermented dairy. I haven't tried cheese actually because that was definitely spot material for me. I mean, I think this Christmas I'm going up to my father's and I have asked him to make a cauliflower cheese because I said to him, if I'm going to eat any vegetables, it'll have to be covered in cheese. So we'll see. We'll see in the new year how my skin responds.
And so we were talking earlier, your dog is also carnivore now?
Yes. Yeah, so I always knew before I got a dog. Like I'd always wanted a dog. Wasn't allowed one as a child because of course my dad was out working all the time. And then when I decided to get a dog, I really looked into like the raw diet and what to feed. And when you look at kibble, I mean I wouldn't eat grains myself. I certainly am not going to give it to my dog. Um, so I've always fed him raw carnivore. And I mean, he's touch wood, he's really, really healthy. He's actually asleep on the chair behind you there. But yeah, I often speak to dog owners if, especially because you get to talk to the people that you get to know them. And there's a lovely couple with a beautiful black lab, and he had arthritis. You could see he was in quite a lot of pain. And I just said to them, you might want to just consider going, grain free, or going on a different allergen, grain free. And it's really helped.
That's nice because it's awful when you see the dogs getting old like that as well, and they don't complain about anything. They just kind of try and get on with life. It's so sad.
Yeah. And I mean, it's only domesticated animals, isn't it, that tend to get overweight. And I mean, in the wild, you don't see a giraffe or a lion with crippling arthritis because, well, they're eating their proper diet.
That's right. Yeah, it's only domesticated dogs that get type 2 diabetes. There's no wolves out there with type 2 diabetes, you know.
No, I absolutely. Or cats. I mean, I had a conversation with a lovely lady recently. She's got an elderly cat and diabetic. And she said, oh, now I'm having to pay a huge amount for this special high protein food. And I said, but it's a cat. They're carnivores. What do you mean? I was absolutely, I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's just it's all money extraction.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Um, so how long have you been carnivore now? So you were keto for 6 to 7 years, and then how long has it been carnivore?
It's been about 2.5 years now.
2.5 years. So based on the experience you've had over the last 2.5 years, if a friend was asking you about it and said, "Look, I'll try 90 days and
Mm.
see how I go," would you recommend they jump in, rip the Band-Aid off, and go head first, or kind of transition in, maybe go keto first?
Yeah, I think if you haven't been keto first, I think the transition could be quite horrific because it's a big thing getting into ketosis. So yeah, I would probably recommend not what I normally recommend to my patients is right. Give up the sugary drinks. I think that's the easiest. Give up the fizzy pop, give up the squash. I mean, the amount of pushback you get from people that don't like water just is incredible. But give up the fizzy drinks first, then give up the obvious sugars. So by that I mean, the obvious carbohydrates that we would recognize as sweet. So cake, biscuits, tarts. Then we'd work on the bread. And I mean, bread can be a massive stickler for people. But then you have people that are absolutely wanting to jump in. I think it really does depend on the individual. Some people definitely low and slow, but other people, they've just jumped in and they've actually been fine.
Maybe it's often a personality thing. Like, um, I'm the type of person that once I see something I want to try, I can't edge my way into it. I just got to go. Okay, I'm doing it,
Mm, mm.
and that's because I can't have kind of a leg on either side of the fence. You know,
Mm,
I've just got to go all in.
yeah, 100%. I mean,
Mm.
it is difficult because the withdrawal from sugar. I mean, I had years ago when I first sort of was into the keto space, I had a gentleman come to see me. He had a chronic lung disorder and he was an ex heroin addict. And so he was diagnosed with COPD. And I recommended keto to him because actually, by reducing the inflammation within the body as a whole, that was going to benefit his breathing. And he said to me, coming off sugar was worse than coming off heroin. And the bone aches that he got with withdrawing from sugar was very, very similar. So, I mean, it's really hardcore.
It's just evil in so many
It
ways.
really is. It really
Yeah,
is. And I
yeah.
mean, when you look at, so in the Elizabethan times, Queen Elizabeth, famously had like no teeth. And the commoners back then would actually blacken their teeth. And the reason why they would do that is because it made them look like they were affluent enough to be able to consume sugar. Now, if that doesn't tell you something, you know, the enamel on our teeth is one of the hardest substances. And if it can rot that while it's in your mouth for that short amount of chewing time, what is it doing to the rest of your body? I mean, we should have learned from then, really, how toxic sugar was. But of course, it's very profitable, isn't it? Very profitable. And that the food companies know this. I mean, when they talk about the bliss point, and so the bliss point is the perfect balance of sugar, fat, salt, and crunch. And this bliss point, they have food architects. That's what they're actually called, to make the food as moreish as possible. So, I mean, they tell you, don't they? Once you pop, you can't stop. And I saw an advert recently. It was for like one of those Muller yogurt corner things, about food addiction, very tongue in cheek, but they're actually telling you, they make it as addictive as possible.
So, Wendy, if people want to reach out to you, do you have any way of getting in contact? Any social media or website or anything?
Yes. So I'm on Instagram as Wendy Bud Herbalist. I've also got my herbal practices, budsherbalmedicine.com, buds with 2 Ds.
No worries. I'll link to those in the show notes. Wendy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and experience. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun. I love to ramble, as you could probably tell.